So what I'm going to walk through here is I'm going to post in general channel. Is the tutorial still on the same spot from yesterday? I have updated a few small things, but that should show up. Okay, so I'm on the official SnowEx Hackweek site. I'm under tutorials, day 1, GitHub. So don't be confused by the day, it's just I've kept it at the yesterday. Since for the login of the JupyterHub, nothing should have changed compared to yesterday. So still put a link up here. I'm gonna right click it here to open a new window. If you go to the snowex.hackweek.io environment, you should be getting this prompt if you have previously logged in. If you haven't, there will be kind of a prompt to say, hey, GitHub wants to access you and your personal account information, say that's okay, and then spin up a server. So now that we probably, or a lot of us will do that at once, it will take a little longer, like 1 to 2 minutes, just give it some time there. If you're still getting that dreaded 403 error that we all have seen, make sure once you are on the SnowEx Hackweek organization, so at the top level of GitHub here, right here, go to the GitHub site, and then here on the member, find yourself. So I'm going to type my name in here. And you see the important part here is public membership. You can click this little triangle here. It needs to be your membership is available to everyone. And a way to verify that is that if you now go in the top right corner to your profile, you should see a little SnowEx icon down here, SnowEx Hackweek. So this is a way to identify that you have successfully also saved this setting there. All right, so quickly checking in the integration and the Hackweek help channel. I don't see any posts yet that we have. Could you post that link to set public? For sure I can. We're gonna go to the SnowEx organization, go to the people tab. Okay, so here is the link where you verify on the people page that your membership is public. Right. Chat seems to say, I'm going to monitor the chat a little more today just to see that people are not falling behind, or we're not going to have too many trying to catch up with things. Okay. So my server is still spinning up, so let's just give it some time right here. So the next thing is for the first time Git Setup. I saw a lot of you were busy this morning redoing your Git Setup. So let's just quickly recapture here. So we took care of part 1 right now, logging into it. And we open the terminal part. I'm still waiting, so let's give it another minute here. Just to do kind of the basic recapture. This here is the basic Git information you do once at the very first time or after the first time you log into the JupyterHub. You don't have to do this again the next day or if you shut down and restart servers. These 4 commands right here, I will highlight the first 2. This is setting your username. This is setting your email address as identified by these 2 words here. And also, if you mistype or said, you know, I mistyped my email address, just issue the command again with the corrected version. It's basically always takes the last time you execute this command, that value will be persistent. This is a little technical background that you do a rebase false. If you're more advanced users, you might use a different strategy. If you'd like to know more about this, come talk to me outside of this tutorial. And then the last one here, this is the important part. I'm not seeing the option. 1 second. You're not seeing the option for the people tab. If I can ask some of the helpers maybe to heal help on tree here, that she has issues with setting her membership to the public. Okay, going back to here to our Git setup. This last part here is the important part that we need in order to save or persist our credentials on the hub. So we can then, issue the Git commands like pull or push from GitHub in a fashion that we don't have to paste our password all the time again. And this is done what's so-called the GitHub authentication tokens. The tokens are created under your personal account. So I will go here up to my personal settings. Again, top right GitHub menu, look at your icon, go to settings, and there's the developer settings. And here are the personal access token. You see, I've done mine already, so I named it SnowEx Hackweek. If you just want to generate a new token, you click this button right here, confirm your password. Here's how you can name it with a note. I just type in for safety here, for a reason like Hackweek. And then you need the repo, workflow, and admin org. And you can also see this right here, just replicate the screenshot right here. Repo privileges, workflow, and admin org. These are the three checkboxes you need to do for your authentication token. So once you do generate a token, it's important to note here as well. Let's just do one for me for testing purposes to show you what I mean. Test, repo, admin org, and workflow. That didn't register. There we go. So this token right here will only shown to you once. So if you lose it or you don't paste it, copy it fast enough, you will have to regenerate this token because there's other safety reasons from GitHub that they only show to you once, and then it's only like hidden or stored in a secret manner that cannot be retrieved again with a readable fashion like this. So just in case you lose it, just do it again, take that token, and then use it going forward. The other thing to notice, once you follow these steps right here, and you are at the step where you paste and enter your password, it will, some Git versions do not, wait a second, I'm not in the right spot for that show. Here it is, this is the stop. So at the step where you get cloned, the GitHub setup check, this is just a repository for us to trigger an authentication. Following error, I'm just seeing. One second, I think you're one step ahead of this with the SnowEx website, so I will come back to that in a minute. So getting back to the clone command right here with the setup check repository, it's just a repository to test authentication, which we can throw away afterwards. Here at the username, you see this is where you put your personal username of GitHub in there. And when you paste a token, this field will just stay blank. There will be no stars or anything. This is kind of a security feature from the terminal that no passwords are shown. And then you just paste it once and hit enter, and that's the point where you see these 4 lines here, that you successfully put that token in there in the right format. Then for us to verify is, then we go inside the directory, so use the change directory cd command, since a clone command will create a folder for you at the location where you execute it. And and so you see it names it the same way as a repository. So Git Setup check is the name for the repository. Git created us a folder that says setup check right here. You go inside, change directory, and then inside there, issue the git pull command. And the git pull command basically is a test where it goes out to GitHub, tries to fetch any changes that occurred, and there will be none for this repository since it's just an empty shell, and it will say already up to date. Git clone, for this I get a command not found. Are you executing this git clone command in the open terminal? So I can demonstrate this right here. There it is. So I'm getting a new terminal for those. You can either hit a new launcher with a new terminal and hit the button here, or you can go up here, say new terminal. These are just different ways to do it. So now I'm doing a list short and -al just so everything. You see here, this lost and found folder will show you all the visible folders. It's also here in the output because it's visible. Everything with a dot is an invisible folder or an invisible document for a file explorer. Font size for short. So lost and found is the folder you see here in the terminal output and also in the file explorer. If I go back now to the SnowEx hack command, so this command is what I'm testing right now. My authentication credentials are already set up. I'm just pasting it. Some terminals will require to do, if you want to access your file or OS system, you do a shift and a click, shift right click, and you can paste. So now you see git clone. Because my credentials set up, I am successfully cloning this. I'm going inside there. I'm now inside the directory. PWD's present working directory will show me I'm inside the GitHub setup check, and a git pull shows me already up to date. So now I know my authentication is working. I have the credentials set up. And with this, now here comes a very dangerous command. It's called the rm command with a -f. And a -f is the forceful flag. And the forceful flag will always delete without questions. So be very careful when you ever execute this command. We can just remove this repository since it's only just an empty shell to check our setup. All right. So now you see in a minute, this should also update here. If not, you can always hit the refresh file list, but you saw it already disappeared from you. So this is the setup for authentication. So now if you got to that point, you will see that you get no longer prompted for your password and username again. Going back to our tutorial. Quick recapture of the commands you're going to see. I think you heard that yesterday, or I went over those yesterday, so I'm going to go a little bit quicker over that since we're also going to execute it now in the next exercise. So git add will add new files to version control, or will add changes to an existing one for the next commit. Git commit is actually now saving, persisting the state as a version of your file. Git log will show you all the changes to either the entire repository or a file. And then the git clone is what I just showed you with you pulling a remote repository from GitHub to the JupyterHub. So you're copying the repository as is down there. Git pull will then get the changes that have been done in the meantime since you issued your git clone command to the repositories. So git pull will pull those changes down and update your local copy. And then git push, when you have done changes to the repository and you want everybody else to have it, you push those changes up to GitHub, sharing it with everyone that they can then, for instance, issue the git pull, and the git pull will then gets them the changes you just did. All right, so let's walk through a little more concrete example. And also, I think a lot of folks are interested in how to make my notes in the tutorial. So to make notes in the tutorial, as I talked yesterday about it, you have to make a fork. The fork is mainly a reason because we don't give everybody right access to the website, but you open source it for everybody, so everybody has the content and can get their own version and make their changes as they see need. So this is what calling a forking. If you don't have right access to a repository or you're not a member of that organization, you can still fork it because it's open sourced and do your own changes with it. To fork, we go back to the SnowEx website. I hope I have it somewhere here. So this is go back again to the website. Let's paste this URL into the chat. I'm posting it in general. So go to the website. If you have done that yesterday, you don't need to fork it again. You can just go and use your other fork, and we'll update how I can show you how to update in a minute. But here's the fork button. Hit it. You will be asked which user should get it. So I will use my personal user right here. So now you see I have my name website instead of SnowEx Hackweek website. And website is again just a repository name. Yep, Jessica, if you have spotty internet, those steps should all work in the as and the tutorial.
And Joe, there's a question about if people used accidentally their password rather than the token. Is there a way to go back and use the token?
Yeah, so that is a little more involved, but it's definitely easier to do. So the way also, another one, I didn't go into that, there is a file you see on your login that says Git Credentials. So if you ever were to remove that file, GitHub will no longer be able to authenticate without asking you for the password. And it's also a safe file to delete. So if you just remove this file right here, Git Credentials, and I can actually show you, cat is a command on the command line that will just paste the content of the file. If you see there, this is how GitHub actually under the hood stores your credentials. It says my name, and this is my token. I'm pretty safe here. I can show this to you guys. Otherwise, if you have a password there, don't do this. But this is how GitHub really internally does it for you. So if you want to change passwords or you want to remove token access with that token, you either go to the settings up here, then it will be shut down forever. Or if you just want to change it to a different token, remove this file, and you can do any other token that you desire. All right, so going back to our fork flow. So now we forked. For those people who haven't forked, it will maybe take a minute or two, shouldn't take much longer than that. But now, since I want to start making notes, I'm going to clone my fork. And this is the important part. If you want to make personal notes and save them and push them later to GitHub, it has to be the clone of your user fork. So here, you go into there. I'm going to copy this little clipboard right here, copies it for you. And I'm going to issue a git clone. So always git does git as the command and clone is the action. And I'm going to, again, use my shift key, right click to paste. And here you see, this is my website. And just hit enter. Will take a little while. There's a lot of content we added now in the meantime. But you already see here, git clone again, create a website folder, which is the name of the repository we just cloned in our file explorer. I can also show it again on the command line with the ls/il. And you see right here, the website. So now that we have the website, we can start opening notebooks. So for instance, I can go into the website right here. All of our content is in the book folder. So book, tutorials, and here you see all the tutorials you're gonna go over in the next couple of days, I guess also just later today now. And you can open them with a double click. For instance, what is going to be next, I guess, NSIDC is it after me? Yep. So Amy's tutorial is right here, NSIDC data access. And this up here is just like a standard file browser. You can click on the names and you can go back all the way to the root. So this will get you back to your home folder. All right, so now that I have a local copy, so we walked through the fork, we created that, played the website from our fork, and we see it on the left-hand side. So now how do I keep up with the changes that we're going to post to the website? This is what we call, I talked about briefly yesterday, it's a remote. Remote considered as a source of changes you can fetch and pull from. So to start, we have to go inside the website folder. So let's go cd website, change directory. You can test that you are in a Git repository by saying git status. It's always a good command to do at any point, any time. No harm done. It just gives you back what your current state of the repository is. And it says we're in branch main, which is good. And the main branch is also here up to date with the origin. Origin, in this case, is the GitHub version or the fork on our personal account. So origin in this case, for me, is JoMai website. Let's close this for less confusion. So now I want to add a new remote. And the new remote you can consider as the source of where I can pull changes from. There, we're going to go and use the website. I'm going to paste this into the general channel. So this now here is the URL that we're going to use to define our remote. The way the command works is by saying git remote, the command we do. We're adding the label SnowEx with this URL. I mentioned briefly yesterday, I'm going to repeat it again here for goodness sake here. Upstream is a very common pattern to use. And I think since it's just a label, a more descriptive is a better choice every once in a while here. So we know this is our SnowEx remote instead of our origin, which is our personal remote. So you can also just, if you are on the tutorial, you just can copy and paste the command as is. It comes back with nothing, which is good. It will only come back with something if something goes wrong. And now in order to confirm that our command was successful, we're going to have to issue now, or we can issue now a list of all of our remotes, which is called git remote -v for being verbose. You see, I added the SnowEx right here. This label will be exactly what you put up here and exactly the URL you pushed. So now we're set up for being able to get changes. The way now we actually get to those changes, though, is yet another step. Then we have to do a two-step process here. First, we're going to ask with git fetch and the remote name of the new changes, if there are any. So let's go back. Nothing. Well, this is expected since I just forked it and cloned it to my local. There are no, oh wait a second, I forgot the label. That's why it is. This is the expected output. There you go. And it just got a few new branch names I haven't known about, because when you fork, you only get to get the main branch and no other branch. But anything else, it's not seen here because I just forked it and cloned it. So the two versions are identical. So now to actually pull those, yeah, Jessica, I think just go into CD website and you will be Git discovery across. So that error right here that Jessica has, I'm gonna paste it here into my window. If you ever see this, Git discovery across file system, that means you are not in a Git repository. That's a very common error that people get. If they think they are inside a repository, but and then issue any Git commands, then Git will come back with this very, I don't know what he's talking about, so I can actually demonstrate this right here. If I just go back to my home directory and say git status, you see right here, it basically means I don't know this being a repository, I don't know what to do, but instead, if I go inside my website, we will first of all, by git status, of course, don't get that cryptic error back. On the other hand, though, you can also always check if you are inside a folder and you want to see if it's a repository, either do git status or just check with an AL that there is a .git folder. .git is basically all the dirty laundry that Git knows about, and also with all the internals. So that's something I would never mess with. It's just good to affirm, hey, there is a Git repository, and I'm good to issue my Git commands. quickly going back here to our fetching our changes. So what we did right now, git fetch SnowEx. So git fetch, get all the changes that you know about from our original remote, from the other remote, the SnowEx remote. And now actually apply it, we have to be a little more specific, because you see that we now know a lot more changes. There's a new branch that's called camera, we have a GitHub pages, and there's a Scott. So now for Git, in order to know which of those branches from the remote repository you actually want, you have to say git pull SnowEx main. So going back to here, pasting. So now this is the action where we actually pull those changes and transfer it to your local version on your JupyterHub. And it comes back almost as you saw before. It's already up to date. There were no changes. So that is good. All right. The last thing I want to also highlight for this command, before you ever do a pull of a remote, I would really highly recommend that you have a clean repository. And what do I mean by clean? So clean being there are no changes currently pending for commit. You can verify this by ordering the git status, and it says nothing to commit, working tree is clean. The reason what I'm saying is if you have some changes that are not yet committed and you pulling down some new changes, there's a high potential of you creating what's so-called a merge conflict. And I know a lot of folks probably have seen this before, have dealt with them and have walked through them. Sometimes they're easy to resolve. A lot of times it would take up your time to go through those. And if you ever run, by the way, during your project into a merge conflict and would like to learn more guidance, feel free to pull me or anybody of those helpers in. I think it takes a lot of experience and practice as well there to get really familiar and comfortable with those. So don't be afraid if you say, hey, I'm so lost, I don't know what to do. Just reach out for help. All of us have done this before. All of us have walked through the pains of merging a Git merge conflict resolving. And I trust me, there will be hope at the end of the tunnel after a while of getting used to merge practices. Anyhow, all right. So last thing I want to note here as well, if you ever have changes committed to your local fork, and you also want to share it and put it up to GitHub, you need to issue the Git Push command. So Git Push, as I mentioned earlier, you have a local fork, you made some changes, and now that you want to also share them with your other peers, you need to push them up to GitHub. And to illustrate a little bit what I just walked you through here, SnowEx website, this is the source of the tutorial contents. They're all on the website. We just created a fork to your personal user where you can now be the own reign of this repository, change it, destroy it, whatever you need to do, you're free to do it because it's your personal copy. We then cloned this down with the clone command to our JupyterHub instance. Now in JupyterHub is where the actual meat of the action happens here. We can do the changes. We remove lines, we add them, we commit them, and then we push them up back to our repository, to our user. When we say git push, it will always go to here. In order to catch up with updates, changes, any other things that happen on the SnowEx repository, on the SnowEx website, on the main repository, we now need to say git fetch remote that we configured SnowEx, and then git pull the main branch. So all the changes, they're on the website, they will be on the main branch. All right, last but not least, quick recapture as well. Whenever you have something working on the JupyterHub and you do those changes, you change the file to have the commits, if you shut down servers and restart them up, all your changes are safe. They are persisted throughout the whole week whenever you work on it. When you upload a file, keep in mind we have a 10 gigabyte limit of your user space. If you and your project team need a bigger space for permanent, we have an S3 bucket, and ping us on Slack if you need to upload stuff to there. If you just have a temporary file, you're creating some temporary large processes output or anything you just want to inspect, there's all of the /temp. We're running here. This is not persisted. If you shut down your server and you restart it, it will be gone. So keep that in mind. And other than that, like I said, ping us on Slack if you need more on in terms of space.